Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I have a very special guest today who's taken time out of what has to be a very busy schedule to join me. We're going to talk about the law, we're going to talk about music, and we're going to look at the world of literature. And to do that, let's turn to John Frohnmayer, an attorney born in Medford, Oregon, and currently living here in the Southern Oregon area. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Bill. Welcome to you.
Let's to first of all, thank you for joining me and taking time out to be a part of this. And let's find out a little bit about you. I understand you are a Medford, Oregon resident, and you were a naval officer in your early days. Is that correct?
Yes, I was born and raised in Medford. Grew up here, went to Medford High School. There was only one in those days because we didn't want to split the gene pool for the football team. And we actually won the state championship when I was a senior. I went to Stanford as an undergraduate and spent 2 years in theological seminary at Union in New York and the University of Chicago. And then the Vietnam War was raging at that time. I was a naval officer on a cruiser, and we would sit off the coast of Vietnam and lob 5-inch shells into the jungle, not really knowing where they would hit, I don't think. And then after that, I came back and went to law school at the University of Oregon and practiced law in Oregon and Montana. And then there was a hiatus in there where I was chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts during the first Bush administration.
I was going to ask you about that. Part of the NEA appointed by H.W. Bush.
Yes, that's
The
correct.
first, okay, very good. Uh, well, as a lawyer, you're certainly no stranger to writing things, and I understand you actually did two earlier books. One in, I'd say, the early 90s, Leaving Town Alive, about your experience at the NEA, and then one Out of Tune, Listening to the First Amendment. That was a text for high school and college students, if I've done my research correctly.
Correct.
Okay, very good. When did the fiction bug bite?
Well, after that, there was a long hiatus while I was practicing law again. And then I wrote a trilogy of books, nonfiction books on sports and philosophy, one on rowing and a general sort of recap of philosophy, one on golf and ethics, and one on skiing and mysticism. And I thought that I had tried a fiction book right after I wrote Leaving Town Alive. That was right after I left the Arts Endowment. And I featured that I might be the next John Grisham, which it proved to be false. But and I showed that fiction book to one of my friends who was an author, and he suggested that I put it in a drawer, which I did for the next 30 years. And I
Oh my.
almost threw it
Wow.
away during the COVID clean out. I started reading it and I thought to myself, well, this isn't any worse than the crap that I read on a regular basis. Oh, and that book happened to be about Ukraine and Russia, just about the time Russia invaded Ukraine. The basis of the plot was that Russia loans a famous icon to the United States, and it's in the museum of this lady, Lara Cole, who is the protagonist, and it gets stolen, and then it creates an international incident. So anyway, that book was published and it did pretty well. And so now there are four Laura Cole books, and the third one, which is Lyrics for Laura, happens to deal with mobile home parks, and so and that's how you and I happen to be talking. And it was really fun to research, and the law. It's set in the late 90s, and the law has improved a bit for home owners, but it was pretty desolate at that time,
Kind of Wild West almost.
and they certainly could get screwed over as they are in the plot of Lyrics for Laura.
Well, speaking of the music and the lyrics, you have a background in music, and I discovered that, and I thought it was interesting because I enjoyed the book. The music is a part of the story rather than an add-on or a songbook or something. It's almost like a character itself. Uh, am I correct that you were a member of an a cappella group at Stanford?
Yes, I was one of the original members of the Stanford Mendicants, which is a all-male singing group. There were like 12 of us at the time that I was singing with them. And the Mendicants, I'm happy to say, are still thriving at Stanford and giving a lot of public performances. I sang with them. I've sung professionally really across the country. I've soloed in New York and Chicago and Oregon and so forth. And what I do these days is sing with my guitar in retirement homes, but a lot of, maybe all of the songs that are in lyrics for Laura are songs that I sing or have sung.
That's amazing. I love that. It's great. And actually, your mother was the co-founder and first president of Rogue Valley Choral Group. Is that correct?
Yes, and that Rogue Valley Choral Group celebrated its 50th anniversary recently.
It's great to see a family tradition of music and that it's paying off in so many ways.
Well, two of my siblings were professional musicians. My older sister taught at the New England Conservatory and Pine Manor Junior College in the East, and then in at Pacific Lutheran in the Seattle area. And my younger brother had a career singing in Germany, opera singing, and then taught at Loyola in New Orleans for his career.
That's
I
great
think
stuff, and it ties into the story. Let's jump into the problems about manufactured home. They're no longer trailer parks, by the way. They're manufactured home
yeah.
communities, or so they tell me. You own the land under the coach, but not the property that it's on. And this really starts getting the problems you talk about in the book are not that far from problems people are seeing today. Uh,
I think that's right. And actually, as I write in the book, the owners of the structures did not own the land underneath their particular structure. That was owned by the owner of the park, um, and I think that's accurate for the time at least.
and nowadays, they actually control who you can sell to. And there's a process called rent reset that's going to be impacting your equity, which means if I have a coach and I put in a number of physical improvements like a heat pump and fix the roof and paint it and things like that, and then I go to sell it, I list it for 150,000 for the sake of discussion. And when the person, often very close to closing, they'll say this is 100,000, 150,000, and the rent is 700 a month. Well, the rent will go from 700 to 1100 for the next tenant.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that impacts they come back, I can't buy at that price because of my money. And basically the owners are eating your equity up
Yeah.
and making it as profit to them.
Yeah. What happened with me and how I happened to get onto this plot line for the lyrics for Laura is that there was this wonderful guy and his wife who used to walk the neighborhood, and he would walk the neighborhood with a cane over his shoulder. He didn't need it to walk with. And I became friendly with him, and they would stop and chat. And it turns out that he had been a finance guy over his career with various corporations. And then in his retirement, he almost as a pro bono kind of thing, helped people in mobile home parks buy the land underneath the mobile home park as a, well, not buy it. Yeah, well, buy it and finance it. And
Mhm.
he spent a lot of time talking to me about how this worked. And some of it is in the book, I think at page 159 or something like that. He's giving me a sort of a lecture on how you finance a mobile home park. But basically, what he was telling me, no, 159 is not the right page, but what he was telling me is that you take the aggregate rent and you do the math as to what you would pay for the land underneath the rent and see what kind of a return it would yield you, and then take that to an insurance company or a bank or somebody who might be willing to finance it, and see if you can make a deal. And the other thing that he told me, he said he'd done about 50 of these over his career, sometimes not getting any fees, sometimes getting a fee of 1 or 2%. But what was really interesting is that he said that probably some percentage of the deals he had done, the property was not for sale. But he said money talks. And if you put together an attractive enough process, then an owner who is, sort of sticking it to the tenants might be willing to sell. And the bad person, the person who's jacking people around in lyrics for Laura is Piper Williams, and she is 100% greedy and a arithmomaniac. That is, she's always doing the numbers and counting her money and that sort of thing. So anyway, that's I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but that's sort of what's going on in lyrics for Laura.
It was, and it was, as I said previously, it was a very interesting read, and I enjoyed it, and I recommend it highly, both as someone in the mobile home end of it and as someone who likes a good tale. So there's that. Are you aware? I don't know if you're still active in the field. Now, one of the big problems seems to be when a park comes up for sale by law, we, the tenants, have to be given, I think it's 30 days notice that the
Yes,
park's for sale and allowed to make a counter offer.
right.
Problem is, even with a committee set up and in place and ready to go, let's say the park is $2 million. So we get financing through a government agency usually who deals in refinance purchasing and things. We say, okay, we can afford to go to $3 million. And then a big corporation comes in and says, we'll give it eight. Well,
Oh,
who's going to buy it? I mean,
yeah,
which
yeah,
offer would you take?
yeah.
This is why the rents are going out of control in mobile home communities because now they have interest on this $8 million. This payment has to be made based on a much higher amount. And in some cases, it's a buy and burn.
Hmm.
Buy it, run everybody out, cut the services. And in some cases, it's like where we're living now, the owner is still living and they've turned it over to a management company. And the management company actually, I don't know how much I can say without getting sued. Uh,
Yeah. Well, let me just tell you some of the things that I write about in the book. Fees for mail, upping your sewage fees, upping your water fees, telling you can't park on the street if you don't have two parking spots actually on your lot. There are all sorts of ways to be jacked around, and the other thing about uh, taking buying a mobile home park and bulldozing it and say building single family lots is that there are some laws in the land use laws of Oregon that put some parameters on lowering the cost, I mean, lowering the supply of low cost housing. So, there's some legal protections, but not a lot.
exactly. I was interested in SRC State Rental Code 90, Section 90, which is what we at OSTA spend most of our time paging through.
Hmm.
And you've got, I had an issue from an individual who wrote and said, my water's brown. And
Yeah.
then, what's going on here? And we said, is it city or is it well water? Oh, it's well water. Well, who's testing it? Oh, the owner. He says it's fine. It's just got lots of minerals. And at law, they're supposed to have it tested yearly. I mean, there's all these things that are supposed to happen, but I am amazed, just absolutely gobsmacked at the lack of enforcement. You can document, you can get pictures, you can go to trial, you can get a small claims, or you can go to mediation, which is another rant I'll go off on if not. Many of the mediators seem to be trained by the attorneys for the property managers.
Yeah.
They don't know about the other half of, let's say 750.2 or whatever it is. Uh,
Yeah. Well, litigation is very uncertain. I spent a career as a trial lawyer, and in the book, Chapter 90, which deals with mobile home parks, is one of the issues, and I won't give away the plot, but yes, there are lots of loopholes, and judges are obligated to follow the law, and
Exactly.
if there's a loophole, then that's tough tough for the owner of the mobile home. And the other thing is that most of them, once they're on a permanent foundation and are the set up nicely, are not really movable. And even if they were movable, you have to take them apart, you have to take them off the foundation and all that sort of thing. Uh, and then where do you go with it? Where do
Exactly.
you put it?
You are a captive audience. Uh, when we were doing our rent campaign, HB 3054, amazingly, everybody's walking around going, "It passed. I can't believe it. They actually did it."
Yeah.
What kicked this off, somebody had attended one of the owners' meetings, and one of the head mucky mucks is reputed to have stood up and said, "Guys, listen, you're getting greedy. You're beating people up. You're causing fights. You're scaring people. You're getting lawsuits brought." He said, "Stop it. You're going to scare the cash cows. They're going to
Hmm.
stampede and we're going to get hammered."
Yeah.
And I didn't bring it to my taping today, but I was the one who came up with the idea for the cash cow hats that
Yeah.
we wore all over Salem.
Yeah.
And apparently that legislators had come up to me who I'd never met and said, "What's this about?" And we'd talk about the abuses. And I think we actually shamed people
Yeah.
into passing.
Well, good for you. I mean, you did a real public service in getting that legislation.
Well, it's a first step. The next step we're going back for is uh, we just recently met with the Attorney General. My vice president had a meeting up in Salem with the Attorney General and said about this lack of enforcement. What can we do so when somebody is clearly violating this section of a enforceable, finable law,
Mm.
something happens?
Yeah.
And something happens after. So, like if I drive through stop signs and nothing ever happens, well, eventually I'm going to kill somebody.
Yeah. Well, there are some tools there that are sort of extrajudicial, and I'm sort of following the some of the extrajudicial stuff that happens in my book Lyrics for Laura. But rent strikes are still, on available. One has to do it in a way that doesn't, puts the rents in escrow and that sort of thing. But um, I think that the only time people are without remedy is when they feel as if they're without remedy.
That is 100% correct, sir. I've met with a lot of people and they'll call up and they'll say, "I have this problem." And they'll explain it to me. And I'll say, "Well, what are you doing about it?" "Well, nothing. That's why I called you." It's
Yeah,
like like calling the police and then the police will come and they'll get the bad guy. Well, I'm a retired English teacher. I'm not coming to get anybody.
yeah. Well, I had a theory when I practiced law, particularly when I practiced by myself rather than with a firm, that I wasn't going to take anybody as a client who wasn't willing to try to help themselves. And that worked out pretty well for me because you want somebody who can be their own advocate and not somebody who feels like, I'm a victim.
One tenant said to me, and he said this very simply, "I hope I die before I run out of money and become homeless."
Mm. Yeah,
That is kind of the bottom line. There have been reports of people in these parks because of some of the tactics who've actually committed suicide because
yeah,
they don't have any more money and
yeah,
they don't want to be homeless and they have nowhere to go.
yeah.
So that's
And I would like to see, if that unfortunate situation happens, a wrongful death action, because it is predictable when the landlords keep jacking up the rents that people are going to become feel as if they have no remedies.
well, I thank you for the book. I thank you for your efforts on getting that information out and some of the even extra remedies that are in there. Are there more adventures for Laura ahead, or have you taken a hiatus?
Well, there is one other book, and I'll hold it up here. So
Yes, please.
yes, it's called No Paintings, No Structure. No, what is it? No Paintings, No Sculpture. And in this book, Lara, the protagonist in the other three Lara Cole books, um, is the city of Roseburg, where this one is set, is
Mhm.
given a Victorian mansion and an unlimited amount of money to create a museum. And the question that the book deals with is, if you have an unlimited amount of money and a place to have a museum, what do you put in it? How does it work? Uh, and I really had a lot of fun doing that, and introduced a couple of other characters that I like very much, as in this book, No Paintings, No Sculpture, which is available at Bloomsbury and on Amazon. And so I'm thinking that there may be one more in this series, but I have really spent a lot of my time lately writing op-eds for the local newspapers, because I think there are a lot of constitutional issues that have been brought to the fore by the present administration.
Yes, I would agree with you, sir. Thank you for your efforts there. All right. Well, thank you for coming in. I'll include for those listening at home who can't see the pictures, I'll include the links to places you can buy the book. Good luck on your future efforts.
Thank you so much, Bill. Enjoyed talking with you.
All
And
right.
good luck in your class. I'm sure that it's one that will be very useful for OLLI members.
Well, I'm very hopeful. Now, you teach at OLLI as well, am I correct?
I'm not teaching one this quarter, but or this session, but yes, I teach a course on the uh, founding documents, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and I'll teach that again in the fall.
It's good stuff. People should follow up on that.
You bet.
All right. Good afternoon, sir, and thank you again.
See ya. Bye bye.